When we're making year-long contexts, it can be very helpful to have a sequence or a protocol for how we're building it. One of the more difficult is literacy. So we're going to walk through just kind of a simulation of building a year-long context with literacy. One of the recommendations that we put forward is starting with writing. Writing standards are very clear, and they are often product and process oriented. So I might have a writing standard for argument and a writing standard for informational and a writing standard for narrative. Those are very concrete. So we can say to ourselves questions like, where in the year would it make the most sense or be the easiest for a student to learn how to write a narrative? So let's say in our simulation, a teacher were to say, you know what, beginning of the year, we want to start off with narrative because it just makes a lot of sense to the kids and it's in a very familiar format. So we could say, okay, narrative in September and October. And then I might say, well, then what's logically next? What, just in terms of the identity of the standards, don't talk to me about the books we write, don't talk to me about any of the other materials that we do, but what would be next? And a teacher might say, oh, the informational. Okay, good. So I might put that in November, December. Then we say, okay, well, what's the most difficult? Where do we want to have that retention maximized? And we know January and February are those highest retention areas. So a teacher might say, oh, argument. I want to get argument. But I would say, well, arguments come in two types, argument informational and argument literature-based. So they might say, well, you know what? Because we just came off of informational, let's go argument informational, reinforcing that design. Okay, there's logic to that. Then we could say, okay, well then stay in argument for March and April, but go literature-based. There we go, now we got ourselves a plan. And they might say in May and June, I want to return to the narrative and bookend those pieces. So what they just did was they put in a skeleton for their year-long context. Narrative to informational, to argument informational-based, argument literature-based, to narrative. All the other standards now can start aligning to and bundle around that kind of structure. So looking for some kind of through line, something very concrete in your set of standards would help in that area. Reading standards then, if I do reading literature standards with my narrative and reading informational standards with my informational, I can follow a similar pattern through. When we're working through these pieces, it's very important to team up with your colleagues and remind one another on a regular basis that just because I put informational and reading informational standards, let's say in November, December, that doesn't mean writing a narrative is forbidden or writing an argument is forbidden. I don't want to think like that. It just means I made a commitment at a bare minimum to get evidence of an informational writing piece at that point in time. And instructionally or curricularly, I can have tons of other writing pieces going on, or I can go deep. When we're making a literacy-based year-long context this way, it's vital to remember that literacy is such an interdisciplinary and complementary spiraling event that I don't put all the standards that could go there. I can't say it enough. I want to focus on this is a minimum. The reason why this is important is teachers already feel overwhelmed. We feel like we don't have enough time. We feel like the expectations are high. So when a teacher wants to cut with confidence, make decisions about, you know what, I want to go deep on this sequence of informational. I want to spend a lot of time doing it over and over and over again so my students retain it. If they look at a year-long context and see that indeed that is there, two feelings come through. One, because we have a year-long context, we know that at some point every single standard is already met. So I don't have to feel like I have to do every single standard all the time. The second feeling that comes through is a sense of confidence, this being able to go deep with that. It's almost permission giving. Okay? And then when I do have evidence of those pieces, the permission goes another way. I can move into deeper, richer things with my curriculum, knowing I've met the minimum expectation in terms of standards alignment. Those two feelings in literacy cannot be overstated. Literacy teachers feel overwhelmed, but the truth is If we organize ourselves and we make our commitments clear in terms of the non-negotiables where consistency is required, we actually release permission for the flexibility. That is something that teachers report to us they don't feel enough of. They don't feel like they have permission to go into some of these above the standards expectations, to go into areas of their choice, things they know their students would be really interested in, because they say, oh, I have to pass a test, I have to meet these standards. So hopefully as you create your literacy year-long context, that kind of feeling will be reduced.